So let's go for half an hour. So ask any questions that you guys have in here for me. Thanks for joining me. We're talking about noise, and we're going to go through a few images. And let's go ahead and start with Brendan's awesome Bandon shot. So when I zoom in, oh, it's not going to let me zoom in very easily. Oh, there it is. Now it is. And, oh, I have to hold down the Alt button. That's what it wants me to do. You look inside all of our images, and where does noise happen the most? It happens where it's really true black. And if I could zoom in any further, you would see all of the textures that you're seeing in this image on the side by the light, on this rock. And this image is a panorama going up. And so Brendan was able to mitigate the noise that would happen in this image by having a panorama. Where you have your blackest blacks, you'll see the noise, and I always see it in the foreground a lot more than I see it in the sky. It depends on how my sky is going, but for the most part, the noise that is affecting any of my image, it's in the foreground. And so how do you combat that? Well, let me show you. Is it going to go to that image? No. Right here, you can see Brendan's foreground without lights. And so let's pull that up and let's go full screen again on this picture. This is Crater Lake. You look at this big, huge image, and how many of you are thinking, well, that sucks. There's a lot of noise in this image. He has a 5D Mark III. It's not like the 6D or the D850 or the D750 in Nikon. It's not really as good as the 5D Mark IV. How many of you are looking at this image and saying, oh man, that sucks? Just sucks. Look at all the noise. I mean, there's more than just noise here. We have color noise. We have weird color banding in the panorama. And do you see that? Can you see that stuff happening? Let me show you what happened by zooming in. Right here is a pocket of red that happened inside this band of the panorama stitch. He has some red up here. It's just this weird color aberration that's happening that is coming from the stitching of two different images together in this panorama, and the overlap areas just sometimes give you this weird seam. And it happens in your foreground in the sand a lot. When I do knolls, man, my stitch looks terrible. But when you look at this image, noisy. Completely noisy. This is not clean. This image is not a foreground stack. This is not anything specially done to fight the noise. It's embracing the noise. Embracing the noise. Why did he embrace the noise? Why does he care that there's some stretching in the corners? There's some issues at the very top, very big issues at the top, where you have all of those stars stretching, where in the bottom half of this frame, you can see that the stars are not stretching. And yet, you pull it out and you look, and you're like, wow, that's a pretty awesome image. And so my emphasis today is on relax. Noise in your image isn't a problem. Am I going to be able to see Brendan's settings for this picture? I bet I am not. I have to recall them. Let's see if I can get his info from this picture, because I love this picture. And I want to see if I can find out what ISO he was at. It is not showing on here. I wonder where Brendan went. If you guys know, Brendan is... he's the joking, we joke around calling him hamster bladder. So he's probably in the bathroom. That's probably why I can't see him or hear from him. So he is gone right now. But ISO, ooh, I know the ISO for these ones. The framing, the videos that we've done in the past, when we work on them for our videos for Photog adventure videos, he gives me the raws. And so in Escalante, I have the raw of this image at Dance Hall 1. Dance Hall 1, where's the raw? Where's the raw? I think that's it. Let's see if this is it. Oh, this is the other dance hall rock. This is actual dance hall rock. Up here is the rock that everyone's is famous for Milky Way photography. Up here, it's just in the back of dance hall rock, and it's one of the cool locations out there. This is his raw. Yeah, that's his raw right there. So let me open up his raw and open up his final. So if you look at his final and you look at his raw, oh, it didn't show me the raw in space anymore. Come on back. Here's his raw image. So he captures this image out in dance hall rock, and since I can see myself a little bit, I'll keep myself there. He captures the image as best that he can, and his settings are 3200 ISO, and so he actually stayed very low. And this makes sense to be 3200 ISO, because when you're at 3200 ISO, you get a whole lot less in your image. I think I just heard Brendan walk in. Hey, Brendan, come join us, man. Been talking about your image at Dance Hall Rock, and it looks like your ISO setting was 3200. But the thing about this that I'm showing compared to your Crater Lake image, hey, show yourself on the camera.
Hey.
Hey. And so I was joking that you were probably in the bathroom. That's why I haven't seen you, but you weren't actually in the bathroom. So hi. Brendan is here. Hey, guys. If I go to my camera again, you can see him better. Let me go to the front-facing camera, and kind of better. Right. I'm going to switch over to that camera right now. Hey. So, Brendan, when you're taking that shot over there at Dance Hall Rock and Crater Lake, I'm looking at these images. So you guys see Brendan here in the scenery. So you got that. That's established. Let's go back to the images. So here's your tree rock image that's raw, and we have your final right there.
Okay.
And I'm going to Crater Lake image right now. This one is a panorama. We talked about some of the noise. Oh, I hit Z, so I went to the very end of that. Crater Lake, and back full screen. We talked about some of the issues of the panorama stitch that causes the color banding that happens in there. And we looked up at your very top frame and how the warping is happening on that very top, that noisy, stretchy stuff. Even just the noise in your image, in your foreground. I mean, look at the incredible amounts of noise just in everything. And yet, you pull back, it's like, wow, okay, this is an awesome picture. How much do you actually care personally that that's noisy?
Not a whole lot, and I'm curious to see how it looks with print, because I know that when you print an image, it actually blurs a lot of that noise out and still looks sharp. And so printing, I heard, is really forgiving for these type of images. So I'm excited to try this image out, and some of my other images that I think are noisy, but I think will print really well.
Yeah, exactly. And this situation that you have right here, since you're doing a panorama, you've already got a better taking care of the noise that you have. The Dance Hall Rock image, the reason why I'm pulling that one up and I wanted to show that one was because it's a single frame of a single image. There's no stacking. There's no panorama to help with the framing.
Yeah.
And here's your raw, and you're at 3200 ISO. And so I'm curious what your choice was for ISO, because I know you don't usually go that low on ISO. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think because it was just such a dark area. I mean, it was one of the darkest sites we've been to, and there's almost zero light pollution. I mean, literally, it was so dark, the sky was so bright that I lowered my ISO and I was still happy with what I was seeing. So I just went ahead and went for it.
So these are all going to be old images. I think these ones have been located. I'm going to show you guys my raw. Oh, nope, they're not located. Not found, not found, not found. Okay, so my older images are not found. That one also not found. I want to show you guys over here on Lightroom. If I make this its own scene and slide over to you guys on Lightroom. Oh no, Lightroom is not taking over space unless I put you on the main monitor. Let's go up. And so, full screen, you guys are seeing my Lightroom catalog now, and I want to show you an image that's a single frame versus an image that's been panorama. And I'm doing it in Lightroom just so I can zoom in extra. I can really zoom in. So, what's my best example that I got on here? I mean, Escalante was really cool. And there's a panorama stitch in the end on this one. So, let's just look at it. Let's check it out. So, if we look into this frame of Sunset Arch, this is part of many. So hey, Rob's on here too. So Rob Bryan's administrator of our Facebook group, Dean Vincent's administrator of our Facebook group. Both of you guys are moderating for us here on this live feed, so thanks for taking care of that. So talking noise. Oh, Rob's gonna get a D850. He's gonna get a D850 and make us very, very, very jealous.
That sounds good.
Yeah, no kidding. So here we are, and zooming in extra. This is a single frame of my panorama stitch of Sunset Arch. And you can see, I mean, I don't even think that I took care to make myself extra focused. Look at all the stretching that's happening on the sides of that image. Look at all of that. But then when you go into the panorama of this whole thing, I'm loading up the panorama now of this arch, and it's taken some time because it's a big image. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 frames in this panorama. And you pull back and you see all of that noise and anything happening with the focus just disappear. When you zoom in, you can still see the problems. You can see the stitched areas. Let's see, where the cleanest part of the lens was being used, and you can still see some focus issues. So when we came back up here and captured this shot, it was a one last time. We didn't have much time to do it. And so we had spent most of our time down at Sunrise Arch and not the Sunset Arch area. And this group was ready to go. We were going to turn off the lights soon, and so we just quickly captured what we could, and I had no idea Aurora was going on.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was so cool. And you can see, and you zoom in, on the foreground, especially the blurry Brendan right here.
No,
that is
not.
you, isn't it?
No.
Is that
That's Robert.
Rob? That's not. That's the other guy named Robert. There's Brendan. Yeah, that's definitely Brendan. Right there. My foreground is being lit, and it's still. Well, it's not as noisy as it could be. Look, it's looking pretty good. You see a texture, but you don't see that. So, in the individual frames of this sky, I have focus issues. I have stretching. I have a little bit of noise in the sky, and when I piece it all together in a panorama, it brings all of that noise out, like you're pulling back from the image and you don't see it up close.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys have a kit lens or an old camera, and this is where these files are coming into play, let me go back to this screen. In this old image right here, let me close this, Mirror Lake. These are yours. Okay, here's one. This was taken without a 6D. This was taken with my 70D camera right here. And so we're talking Rokinon lens, but a 70D. It's a crop sensor. I'm going to have noise problems, right? I'm going to have issues, right? Well, let's see what kind of issues I have. I can see incredible amounts of noise like I see in even my 6D and on his 5D Mark III. And I can see the best that this image has given me on clarity with that. But man, I'm not disappointed.
No.
You look at these individual images and you worry about noise, but because I didn't try and sharpen anything, because I didn't try and process the noise in camera, the noise that I end up with is so minimal. I'm not bringing an accent to what noise I have, and I don't know, I guess the uniform grain texture across this whole image feels okay because, well, it's just what the image looks like. And when you pull back and you see that printed on metal sitting in my house, I'm not going to cry over this picture having some noise. It really isn't going to be a problem. So the way that I solved this, and because I was on the 24 millimeter crop down to 35, 37 or something like that, that 24 millimeter lens became a 30 something millimeter camera lens. Because I had that crop factor, I was taking a panorama already. I had to take a panorama, and a panorama immediately fixed the issues that I was having with noise in that image. Let me go back to what I was doing with your picture so that we can show the comparison. So we have his dance hall rock image right here. That's nice and polished, and you can't see the rope anymore. Oh, I went over to the other screen. Let me go to this side. I'm going to pull this raw over here so we can see the raw as well. So when I jump around between these two images, let's close this, go to the raw again, and it's at the very bottom. It's 3200 ISO. I'm impressed that you got such a great Milky Way out of 3200 ISO, because when I jumped and changed to a higher ISO, I love the outcome of seeing more stars. But I guess you were focused on this terrain, keeping it noise free as you possibly could. So this live feed needs a good list. It needs a good list of what can help you the most. And to get rid of noise in your images, do a panorama first and foremost. It's not going to get rid of the noise. It's just going to mitigate your visual on the noise. You have to zoom in really far to see it. This panorama image, the full frame, share on Facebook, they still won't see it. They won't see that as much. So panorama, and go in a lower ISO and stretch it. 3200 ISO, I know that I was nervous to go to 3200 ISO with my 70D, but when I finally pushed it to 5500, I had a lot better images using 5500. And Brendan's on a full frame camera here at 3200 ISO, and he knows the foreground is going to be noisy when he processes it. Let's check out your processed image again and look for noise in there. And feel free to say anything about it that you want. Okay. I'm going to zoom in. So let's check it. You even had to, why is it not responding to my moving it around like it was before? Can I go around this way? Go on. I was able to completely navigate these pictures when I was zooming in on your Crater Lake, but now it won't let me move anything. But you guys can see how he's completely cloned out the rope that was right here. And he's done some work on getting the processing fixed so that it looks nice and you can't tell that the rope was cloned out. And look how much more of the sky that you brought out. Even the air glow is showing up in this shot.
Yeah.
You said 3200 ISO and how many seconds? It's 15 seconds long. So 15 seconds long capture. And since I can't even zoom in on the noise around the whole image, we'll just look at this part of the image. Yeah, I mean, I see the noise. I see the stretching that's happening up here, the motion in 15 seconds. I see that the moving tree is blurry because the tree is windy. The wind's blowing the leaves back and forth there. But really, that's pretty creamy looking. I don't see it as noisy in the rock.
No, there's a little bit of noise reduction that I added. And
what's your step for adding noise reduction? Do you do it in Lightroom?
I do it in Lightroom. I do it usually around 25. Not really higher than 30. And
so let's say I do noise reduction. I did not do any noise reduction for this image right here. I didn't do anything. If I'm in the develop module, are you talking the slider, the noise reduction slider?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go to the noise reduction slider. I slide it over to about 25, 25, and then I usually do about 80, between 60 and 80 for the contrast. So it brings back a little bit of
Which one of these sliders are you using mostly?
Right there, the noise reduction right
on
there.
luminance?
Yeah, for luminance, yeah.
Okay. So if I were to move my luminance over to 100%, you can see the difference.
Yeah, it gets really creamy and just not...
Very weird.
Yeah, it looks like an Art Deco piece at that point.
So, hey guys, I want to confirm that you guys are still seeing everything all right. Give me one message. You guys aren't chatty today as much as you have been in the past, and so I don't know if there's anything there. Someone give me a thumbs up or a message. Let me know that everything's still working off this internet of the hotel. So that was the one drag that had been to be here that we had that problem. So
yeah, you can see it looks really creamy and muddy, and there's no detail here. Lots of detail lost because of that. So.
I bring it back down to 11, and you can see all the detail and the texture of the rock coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't mind that. I know that that's noise reduction.
Right.
Oh, good. Zeralda said that's all good. Hey, Zeralda, have you heard today's podcast? Looks good from John Link. Thanks for confirming that. Zeralda, if you haven't heard today's podcast, we featured your cool crane image. So if you go to photogadventures.com and see our show notes there, just look at that podcast, episode 58. Zeralda had a really cool crane shot, and I want to be there. I want to get that shot. It's so cool. So luminance slider up to 50%. Let's see, what would probably be the least amount of change to the rock? Maybe in the 20s?
Yeah, I would try 25 and then try like 60 for the contrast below that.
So then you bring the contrast up to 60 even.
Mm-hmm.
Because guys, I don't do any noise reduction on my images other than panorama. Oh, thumbs up from Simon. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Oh, cool. Not yet. Check it out. Thanks so much. You bet, Zeralda. We're excited. We're excited to have you part of the group, and that was just a really cool picture. We couldn't keep it to ourselves. We wanted to share it with everyone, so I hope you're okay with that. And this up at 60, so I don't do any other noise reduction myself. Mm-hmm. I just deal with the image the way it is. I like it, and
so now with the toggle, you can see what it looks like before and after.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, the one up. Yeah, there you go.
Look at the color noise turns off too when I do that. So you see the color noise now. So it's hard to see the difference of just that because there still is a little bit of color noise reduction that's happening in Lightroom because I kept their default 25 color reduction.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's a pretty big difference between those two.
Yeah, the color noise on these red rocks really show up.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
You're not losing a whole lot of detail with that amount of noise reduction either.
No, and
it just kind of smooths out a little bit of the hard grain.
And maybe the step I would take on all these frames that I have right here of my panorama shot is to go in and try Brendan's method of luminance noise reduction and bringing the contrast up, because I don't mind that one bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just see the difference up here on the sky. Let's bring the color noise, man. The color noise back. Let's just do luminance down. What is its default? 0. So now that's what it is without it. So the color noise is already reduced. Everything on the sharpening up here is still happening at its default. Typically, I always bring my masking all the way up. So I have it 100. So it's only really affecting the parts around the stars. And looking at it, just, man, it really is a difference to bring that sky up. And so I'm glad you were here to join me to see the difference of that. It's a little creamier looking, a little nicer. There's some nice feeling to it. And when it's at 0, it just becomes, it becomes a bunch of dots, a bunch of grain that I don't mind personally, but that's something that you guys can consider with your shots. And I consider doing it for sure. Try it out, see what you like in those images. And so let me go to something more recent that's a single frame. Yeah, my own dance hall rock. Let's do that. So here's the processed image. Here's the raw. What's it going to look like in the raw? I think it's adjusting. Maybe that's too edited. Let's go over here. This might be in my original raw. Yep, here's my original. So hitting the backward slash, I can see my raw on this image, and my ISO was at 6400 and you went down to 3200. So if we compare this image to your raw over here, I want to see it. Let me go full screen on this. Can I go back and forth? I can't. For some reason, once that thing is full screen, it will not let me control it. But man, okay, the star amount at 3200, star amount at 6400. It is significant. I mean, if I were to export this and look at it side by side and do a flip back and forth like a animation flip book, you would see stars disappearing and some going back. My Rho Ophiuchi is a little bit more pronounced. No, I guess not really. It's still very similar. I think it's just the detail in the Milky Way itself. You see a lot more white, a lot more dark spots in mine. While you have a dark sky, I have a lit up sky just a little bit more. And that's at the raw. But man, the image becomes fantastic in final processing. But if you look at my typical noise level is this right here. So let's try Brendan's noise reduction. I'm going to go to 23 again like we had it. And 23. 22. And contrast up to 60. And you just always like 60.
Between 60 and 80, depends on the image.
Is there any explanation as to what the contrast is doing?
I think the contrast brings a little bit of the detail back out of the noise reduction. So the noise reduction will typically muddy up stuff, and the contrast will bring a little bit more of the contrast back, bringing some more sharpness and detail back after the noise reduction.
Awesome. Show your face in that screen again since I'm having you talk. So say one more word about that while I have you on here.
So here's one more word.
That's fantastic. Good job. It's funny because I can't get that in the right timing when you were actually talking. So
yeah, it's okay.
So this is an interesting approach to it, and since I'm not one who really messes around with noise reduction, I wonder if I will like changing to this or not. When I start printing, will this in essence happen just by default of the printing causing that little bit of muddying up or creaming out? Let's call it, it smooths it out, or what? I don't necessarily hate my image with it, and I don't hate my image before I did it. I mean, it's practically impossible to see a difference. It really is. It practically is impossible to see that difference. Now that it's kind of focused and adjusted, let's see the difference of 23 again. Oh man, I mean, between your guys' live stream seeing this and me in person seeing my computer, I only can tell a difference right here. I can see a little difference at that spot. I bring down my noise again, I just kind of notice a little bit more grain show up right here. There, now I see it. And it's just very subtle. And so I don't know if I would affect my life too much to not do this any do this on every shot? I mean, why not? Why not do every shot? It's so subtle, it wouldn't be a reason not to do it, and there isn't a reason necessarily to do it. And so my final version has that chord cropped out. You can see the chord's completely cloned out. And there's this weird line in the rock right here, but that's not from my, it's not the shadow of my rope or anything. So it's just, I kept that in there after the clone, and I wondered if I should have got rid of it. But looking at it again right now, I see that it worked out just fine. So let's go back to our other image examples. Let's see if I can get it to actually let me see Mirror Lake and zoom in. I want it to let me zoom in on this. I guess if I don't go full screen.
Oh, there you go.
If I go full screen, I can't slide it. That was what the problem was. Okay, let's go max the screen in our own efforts. So guys, here's a Mirror Lake one. We had tons of light pollution. We had tons of clouds. Clouds are going to bring out the noise. You can see it already in just Brendan's image right here. Very, very dark blacks, and so yes, will there be noise in the black? Yeah, technically, but oh, even when I did it that size? What the devil? It's as if once I change the size of that window, it will not let me zoom around. So we'll just keep it right here. That way you guys can see me talk to you. So I'm looking at it right now, and the black is so black you can't notice the noise. It's so in a silhouetted shot where you're dealing with a foreground that's just a nice black silhouette, don't worry about noise unless you're seeing it in your capture, unlike Brendan's here. And you know, maybe you think you did your luminance thing here, most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah.
So if you did go for luminance change on this, then that would do it. And so I'm trying to find noise that I would be unhappy with, and I can't find it. I'm not very picky either, and so maybe that's also it. The fact that I see a grain in the texture right here, it doesn't seem like a destructive noise. It just seems like a texture. I don't mind it, and I pull back, and all of these stars that are getting the cloud glow that happens when you have like a Tiffin double fog filter, it's really cool. I like it. And even though your image is being completely blocked, you're having a Milky Way blocked by these clouds, I think it's still pretty awesome. It still turns out really well. Let's see what other images I chose for this. Oh, I wanted to talk about the Goshen dry bed again. And this is just, this example, I'm sorry guys, I can't not bring it up how when I was out here with a Canon 70D with my 24mm, actually, did I have my 6D by this point? I think I did. I have to take it back. I think I had my 6D at this point. So I'm already thinking, maybe I can push my ISO a little bit more. I have a Canon 6D now, and that'll be fine. So let me let you guys see me again. Oh, I've got this weird window right here. Oh, it's gone. The line that was there is gone. So in this image, I went up for the first time past 5,000 ISO. And when I did, everything changed immediately. And I'm hoping that I can actually see these changes and show you guys in Lightroom because of my complication of switching out my computer. And so here are the frames. I see exclamation marks in every single one of them. Can I get at least the example frames before? Oh, these are the quick collection. These are the final ones. So I go to my library. Anyone who's new to Lightroom, you might enjoy this. It might be boring for everyone else, but my keyword list, these are my keywords that I've been attaching to all of my images, and it just constantly keeps growing. And so in this area, dry pond, dry wash, I probably said dry wash. I click on the arrow right here in the keyword list. It's going to show me all photos in my library from that. Let me go to the grid view and see all images from this dry wash. Edited in Photoshop. I remember posting that on some forum and I had to add that text in there for some reason. But I have examples of the Milky Way before even Astra was done. Just so you guys know, quick bonus, when you're taking shots during the twilight periods, this is what it turns out like. Let me go away from the grid view. This is dark, actually. You can see how dark it is, but when I capture my normal exposure, it's completely white. And this is completely white. And this is when it starts getting actually into nautical twilight. And maybe even civil twilights here, and this is nautical twilight. Oh no, I bet this is nautical, and this is my astro twilight time period. So you can see a lot more Milky Way in astro, but it's still washed out compared to when I captured for real. And so let me pull into the full darkness. This is already full darkness. I'm going to show you a better one right here. So this is full darkness with the light pollution of the city of Goshen and Alberta out there. And let me get my ISO information up. Will it give it to me? Come on. Yeah, there's 5,000. And this is 5,000. I must have captured my lower ISOs before I moved my camera over. And I decided on my ISO here. 6,400, 64, 64, 5,000. Do I have a 3200 example? I'll be bummed if I didn't. Because I know I went through this process, but I might have only did it during the twilight periods. Looks like I settled on 5,000 at this point, and so my images are not on here. Tragedy. But showing you guys this image right here, going to 5,500 ISO. Actually, I'm already forgetting. I think it was only 5,000. I had a ton of stars show up in my image, but being up that high, I'm dealing with noise. I'm dealing with much more noise being in that situation. Oh, and this one really won't let me. Let me try spacebar again. I can't move it. Can't move it. So let's go full screen. It doesn't zoom in any further, but you can see at best I don't have any noise in the foreground as I lit them. I don't have any noise to worry about in the sky, at least not to worry about. This was a pano stitch of foreground layer, my Milky Way core area, and above it, I think I only went one more. So I have 2 images for the parts of the sky and then 1 image for the foreground below. And so stitching these together, panorama, I stretched my noise, I stopped fighting it that way. It was fantastic. Last example, Bandon. Here is the raw. No, this is mine. This is Brendan's. Mine, Brendan's. Basically the same picture. Let's critique myself, and let's go over to Lightroom for it so that I can zoom in on it. So going back to my quick collection, and no questions are coming up, so we're just about closing out for this live feed. I'm going to do a summary of all the things that we've said and show you guys we'll go and do Brendan's technique of noise reduction again right here live on my picture. So Bandon was in June, so I have to go back to June, and there's Crater Lake, so I'm almost there. And this is the problem when you include everything in your quick collection, because then you can't find anything out. So there's my image. Should be the image, right? Yep, that's the one. Nope, that's not the one. I have more of the ground. Nope. I had a lot more of the reflected water in the shot. And so maybe, no, the streak. If I just cleaned up the streak for that final, I'm guessing that's the case. Because looking at the reflections, this is it. All right, awesome. So let's look at the image as big as we possibly can and zoom in. No noise reduction whatsoever. Is the image itself cool? I love it. I mean, Bandon was beautiful for Milky Way. And even though I get this empty area here with ground and sand that just doesn't have reflection, getting this pool reflection in here was just money to me. I loved it. And for my purposes, I'm happy with it. Totally happy with it. And so let's zoom in on the noise. Tons of noise. I mean, it is practically it's funny to call it sandy and gritty because this is a picture of me out on the sand, but it is just completely noisy. This is a great example right here of noise. So let's do Brendan's technique on this spot, see what we like. So my existing noise reduction, you can see I'm at 0. Sharpening the same defaults, color default. If I turn it off, you can see my color noise is nuts. You guys are probably all have the same kind of color noise in your images if you didn't have that default noise reduction that Lightroom does. Let's try 23, and that is kind of nice. And then I bring the contrast up. Oh boy, There is something to like about that, Brendan. I don't know if you're within audible distance of me, man, but there is something to really like about that noise reduction. I think this live webinar is teaching me something I need to add into my photography. So without worrying about this, let's go ahead and export this one real quick. And I'll export it out. Let's move it to the desktop just so that's easy to find. And in that Untitled folder, why not? And let's call it not the Cape Kawanda Sunset. It is Bandon. And I'm going to do my typical 50% reduction in size just so that I can share it kind of size. That's what I do for our videos. When I do on Facebook, I have a little bit different setting that I need to perfect, and I haven't perfected yet because life's too short to worry about some of the smaller things like that. I'm not having a library of all the different Facebook resolutions that I should render things out as. So now I actually have my banded image right next to each other. So I'm going to go big right here, look at it, and click on this. See, it's a different picture, different framing too. So it's just, see, I like the framing of this one more, but you can see the noise difference. Let's zoom in. I think it'll let me zoom in. Come on, where's that alt? All right, here's that corner of my processed version, and here's my before I tried Brendan's technique. I'm gonna let it sit for a sec so you guys can see it in your screen. Looking over in the stream, I can see tons of noise over there. I don't know if it's adding extra noise to the stream or not, but you can see the difference of that versus that. Yeah, it's just subtle enough that it's not going to be a big change in my life, and I like what it's doing. Brendan, you have won the day. He's not even close enough to hear that he's won the day. So recap, let's recap it. If you guys want to do a very minimal reference Brendan, this is Brendan's information, a very minimal noise reduction, because I wasn't worrying about that stuff. I really wasn't. You go in to your noise reductions on the details. So say you have your bar all the way at the top. This is Lightroom default view of the sidebar. You go down the develop module and you go down to the right, go into your detail section, detail, and from here all the defaults are set, and I recommend bringing your masking up. It'll be something like on 4, and masking is saying, where do you want me to do my sharpening? I'm going to put it anywhere that the white is. And when you hold down your alt button on a PC and your alt button on your Mac, it's the same, and you move this slider, it shows you here's everywhere that we're affecting it with sharpening. And let's bring it off of the big white screen all the way to 100. Go all the way to the 100, and you will be able to make it so that it's only affecting the most obvious of lines and contours and stars. So it's only doing sharpening on those parts. That's it. And you can even bring your sharpening down. I leave it at default. It doesn't bother me at all. Now here in noise reduction, this is where you're going to shine. Bring in that luminance off of the default 0 up to 22, 23, somewhere around there. And contrast, it looks like Brendan likes 60, and it's such a small difference between 60 and 0. I mean, here's 60, here's 0. Okay, there's 60. I barely can see the difference. I can't. And so whatever. That's a good amount to put it at. So that's Brendan's technique as noise reduction down there. Luminance around 23, contrast around 60, and he leaves the detail at middle, just where it is a default. And then that's actually adding in some noise reduction, or you can go and just avoid seeing your noise very easily by doing a panorama. And a panorama is an awesome option. That's what I recommend. You also get a better image because you now have a higher resolution image for printing. You now have more of the scene captured in your shot. But sometimes you're in a situation like here at Dance Hall Rock where, you know what, I'm not going to do a panorama every time. I just want this frame of image. How can you handle this in a frame image? Well, we don't talk about it enough on here because I have to become better at it myself, but stacking. Stacking is an option. Mark G recommendation is to take like 20 images and then use a median filter in Photoshop, and that'll stack your foreground and fix all the noise in the foreground. It looks like butter, he says. It looks awesome. And Joshua Snow has the same recommendation for his stacking. He likes to do that as well with a median filter and starry landscape stacker is what Joshua Snow uses. And so there's ways that you can do it. Eric Benedetti fights noise. He's an awesome astrophotographer. He fights noise doing the star tracking. And so since he has his star tracker going, he gets the sky brilliant, and then he has to capture his foreground in those modes where he can get it, because you're moving the camera and the foreground's moving, so he has to capture the foreground still. But he does a ton of work. He said it was 36 hours to do his Andromeda processing, and so there's a lot of work involved in Eric Benedetti's process that he goes through. I'd be curious to go through it myself someday and see how I feel about it. So you can panorama, you can worry about it like I do and just don't worry about it at all, or you can do stacking, or you can do just a little bit of noise reduction in Lightroom, and it's just very subtle, brings a little bit of creaminess to where you had some texture, some nice grain in the picture. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to have friends that have no idea what you've done wrong in your images, so don't harsh yourself about them. Really don't. It's not worth it. It's so much more fun to go out there and get a good foreground, get a good composition, and capture the Milky Way and just have fun with it. I even have this shot that I was showing you guys earlier that was my Sunset Bridge panorama. Let me make this a little bit bigger so I can see what I'm looking at. Sunset Bridge panorama, and I was so happy with it. And yet when I'm looking at it with you guys right now, I see that, oh yeah, Nick Collection, now that it's been purchased by, what are their names again? DMX, DFX, what is that? I forget what they're called. Devox. Some company has purchased Nick Collection from Google, and so they're going to keep it alive. And Dean Vincent points it out that the define feature of Nick Collection, so if you're in the develop module and you go up to edit photo and you edit in, you can choose, if you have the Nick Collection added to your Lightroom and your Photoshop, you can find it there. And his Define, he recommends it. DxO Mark, thanks Dean. DxO Mark has purchased it, and they're going to keep it alive. And you got the Nick Collection for a while now, and Define 2, he says it works really well too. So go for that, use that, and that's free software right now. And they said they're going to keep it free. So DxO Mark, thank you so much. So you look at that image, that this sunset arch, and you know what? I love it. I love it, and I don't care that when I zoomed in with you guys, not only did I find some noise, but I found some focus issues on this image because I was hurrying, and it turned out like this. Not to mention that I spent 2016 using my Tamron, and it's because I didn't want to do a panorama as much, and I like the 15 millimeter, and I was really trying to see if I could be okay with that using my Rokinon, and so I tried just focusing on the Tamron for it, and I'm finding that I get more noise and more trailing with my Tamron versus my Rokinon. I know the coma is just a little bit better on the Rokinon, and especially the detail of 1.8 or a 1.4 f-stop instead of 2.8, that's a big difference. And so I'm going to put more effort out in 2018 to use my Rokinon, and so I can see if I can get some better images than what's happening right here on the core in my Tamron captured panorama of Sunset Arch. So I'm just saying, guys, it's okay. Noise in your image is totally okay. This shot sitting in our office is going to be amazing when I print it. I'm going to love it. Who wouldn't love this shot when you have friends that come over? It's going to take a real keen eye, a real experienced photographer, or a jerk of a photographer to come in and say, hey, that's noisy. You know, that's kind of noisy. You should change that. So don't worry too much about your noise. Just stick with the basics. Do some basic noise reduction if you want to at all in Lightroom like Brendan recommended, or Define like Dean is recommending, or just get your panorama created, and so that you don't have to worry about that noise anymore. So any questions that came up? It's now 1 minute to 6. I definitely went longer than I said I was going to, but I felt like I owed it to you guys because I'm in this bizarro situation. This bizarro situation of being in the hotel room right now. And so, where's my camera lens? There it is. So I didn't want to give you guys something that was weak sauce today. So looking at the text over here to see if any questions have come up. I will answer anything about anything for the next 10 minutes. So if you guys are watching this on replay, thanks for watching, but you can enjoy this Q&A that may happen, may not. But thanks guys for hanging with me tonight. I really appreciate you guys coming back. Next week, what are we going to talk about next week? Next week. I don't even know what I should focus on next week. If I should repeat something we've done, or if we should go for something completely different. It's a good question. If you guys have any ideas of something that you want to recommend, hit me up right now. Hey, Simon, thanks. And Simon, the message I have for you, I just want to do it in private. I won't say it right now. It's nothing crazy. So we're excited to do your portfolio review. One of the reasons why we're here today is so that we can focus on the rest of the portfolio reviews that we have, because we just haven't had time squeezing them in the midnight podcast that we've been doing. So thanks, Zeralda. Enjoyed having you here too, and seeing your crane shot. Your crane image is amazing, people. I mean, I think I'm going to post it right now just so that everyone can see what I'm talking about, because man, it's cool. It is really cool. So here's our podcast notes, and you go into them and you'll see her crane shot. I mean, check that out. Check that out. Oh, can I open a new tab? Let's see. Yep, I can see even bigger. So she has this awesome crane shot, and these other cranes right here just hanging out. I mean, I might even be wrong. Are they not cranes? Are they something else? I think they're cranes. And these are pretty birds to sit in what looks like a drab gray swamp. Such a cool shot. You are too kind. Not lying to you, Zeralda. Really do love the shot, and really love the fact that this one's doing the spread eagle move up there. It's funny that I call it spread eagle when it's another bird, but sweet shot. So egrets. See, that I thought there was another term, not a crane. It's an egret. Cool. It is a cool shot, Simon. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Robert agrees. It was an early foggy morning, so that's why everything looks so dingy and so atmospheric. That's cool. Really cool stuff. I haven't had any comments come up or questions that have risen. We've gone 2 minutes so far into this Q&A. So what I'm thinking that I want to talk about is, in the course we go a lot into I go into gear. But last time I did gear, I had Rob help, I had Drew help, and Brendan was there, and so we had a kind of a big smorgasbord of gear. I think what I want to do, if you guys agree, give me a thumbs up here, give me a response here if you're okay with it. Should we do gear about just, I'm going out, doing Milky Way photography, what is in my bag, what is on me, what do I wear to stay warm, where do I go out? Do you want to see my box, my get out of Dodge box that says I'm going to Milky Way photography? Should I do anything like that? Fujifilm cameras with Rokinon 12mm, not the 12mm, Patrice. I think your name's Patrice and not Patrick. I think it's Patrice Arvidsson. So Patrice, yeah, I have seen someone else use a Rokinon 24mm on a Fuji camera. I haven't myself. And the only thing I don't like with the Fuji camera is that the EVF, the electronic viewfinder, recognizes when your eyes go close to it. And so when you bring in my focuser that I like to use and you go up there, you have to fight it. You have to find the setting. And I could not find the setting on Brent's camera fast enough. So we just dealt with it, tried to go around it. And so we couldn't do a focus easy on it, but his picture turned out fantastic. The Rokinon 12mm, what is that? F-stop, because the 16mm has a 1.8, I think, the 24mm is 1.4, and so it's nicer to have those f-stops. That larger aperture is much better than going to 2.8. If you're gonna go for 2.8, and get the 14mm Rokinon, that's an awesome one. The 12mm I don't have an experience with enough to say. The mood is awesome in the shot, Simon. That's so true. And just the way that bird is taking off, it's like it's some hero protagonist that's going to save the day. I love it. I love the crane, so I'm leaving it up there. Any other questions that have come through? Next year, Patrice, we are going to do more images and comparison videos where we have access through Lens Pro to go to get equipment, and we're going to test them side by side, and we have buddies, and I'm going to do more comparisons between. I wanted to do them this year, but my full-time job was getting in the way. Now that I've gotten rid of that, I can put more focus to just taking a camera and take this camera, go out, put them on 2 tripods right next to each other, and do exactly what I do with Milky Way photography and see which one turns out to be easier and better. Rob's always telling me that Nikon's easier and better. Let's find out for sure. Let me test it for sure. I'll go out with Rob when he has his D850 and enjoy that D850 with him. So that'll be awesome. So I don't like doing gear videos much. I'd rather teach about Milky Way. We've talked about composition. We've talked about dealing with noise. We've talked about dealing with light pollution information. But I did have someone ask me about photo pills, so I wouldn't mind doing an entire live feed on how I use photo pills. Is that something more interesting than gear and winter gear and warm gear? I roll my eyes at my own suggestion of gear because I just don't like gear. D850 envy already. Yeah, exactly. Completely feeling it, man. Completely feeling it. So if you guys don't have any votes for any of those, I'm going to look into my lessons and say which one I like. It's pronounced Patrick. Okay, awesome. Not Patrice. Sweet, thanks for correcting me so that I didn't go too far in calling you Patrice. Since I can't see the picture on the live chat well enough to see if that face is a male face or a female face, I was guessing Patrice since there wasn't a K, but there also wasn't an E at the end, so I wasn't sure. And Zeralda, yes, photo pills are very helpful. I agree, Zeralda, and that's enough vote for me. Let's do a Photo Pills 1 live webinar next Monday. It'll be at the earlier time, 3 p.m., unless I see any complaints. You want me to do 5 p.m.? I can, but I think 3 p.m. was working pretty well for helping other people in other countries and other time zones. And so if 3 is okay, I'll do a 3 p.m. Mountain Time, so it'll be 2 hours earlier than this one was, and we'll do a Photo Pills 1. I'll go through the geodetic info, how I use that to recognize whether a mountain is going to be in my pathway of the Milky Way core, and make sure I understand whether I'm in a canyon here and how high is this. Now that I understand that better, I can use it more than last April when I had our situation of being out there at the Mule Canyon over at House on Fire Ruin. We wanted to see if we can get the Milky Way there. It was hard to tell where I would be versus the Milky Way, and just using photo pills wasn't enough, but it actually is enough if I use the geodetic pin info. So I'm going to try that out. Let's do it next week. Photo pills it is. So it'll be a photo pills crash course again, and I won't jump around other than showing you my face here and showing you my face on the iPad. Oh, I have the wrong screen that I'm moving over. So on the iPad, I will use this iPad to show you guys photo pills. So if you have an iPhone need, I'll plug in my iPhone as well halfway through and show you the difference. No, it's so much better to use the iPad. So I'm going to use that, guys, even though it's going to be different than what your iPhone sees. So apologize for that. But let's go ahead and end this live feed. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Thanks for coming back. And please hit me up on info@photogadventures.com if you have any requests. Rob Bryan, haha, I don't even have it yet, Dean, but the MV is definitely here. Even if you don't have it, man, we're just excited about it. They're hard to get right now. Guess they're pretty good. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll give you guys some more content coming from our Blitzkrieg that's happening here in the hotel. Get out another video. Look for the Crater Lake Photog adventure coming up very soon. So see you guys. Have a good day, and hope